In the gritty underbelly of early 20th century America, Meyer Lansky was born as Meier Suchowlański in 1902 in Grodno, then part of the Russian Empire, to a Jewish family fleeing persecution. At age 9, he immigrated to New York City, landing in the teeming Lower East Side, a melting pot of immigrants where poverty bred resilience and street smarts. Young Meyer quickly adapted to the harsh urban landscape, learning to navigate the crowded tenements and bustling markets, where survival often meant bending rules. This environment shaped his sharp intellect, turning him into a calculating figure even as a child, setting the stage for his future in organized crime. As Prohibition dawned in 1920, Lansky seized the opportunity in illegal alcohol trade. Partnering with Italian mobster Charles "Lucky" Luciano, he orchestrated bootlegging operations, smuggling liquor from Canada and the Caribbean. The Jewish Mafia, including figures like Arnold Rothstein, financed and ran sophisticated networks, evading law enforcement through bribes and clever logistics. Lansky's role as a financier grew, laundering profits into legitimate businesses, showcasing his visionary approach to crime as a corporate enterprise rather than mere thuggery. The 1930s saw Lansky and Luciano revolutionize organized crime by forming the National Crime Syndicate, a multi-ethnic alliance that divided territories and resolved disputes peacefully. This commission included Jewish and Italian bosses, with Lansky as the financial architect. He masterminded gambling empires, from illegal casinos to race-wire services, amassing wealth while maintaining a low profile. His influence extended to labor unions, where he manipulated strikes for profit, solidifying the Jewish Mafia's power in America's shadow economy. Lansky's innovation peaked with the creation of Murder, Inc., a Jewish-dominated enforcement arm led by Louis Lepke Buchholter, responsible for hundreds of hits to maintain syndicate order. Unlike flashy gangsters, Lansky operated behind the scenes, using intellect over muscle. His ventures into narcotics were cautious, avoiding direct involvement to minimize risks, focusing instead on expanding gambling operations nationwide, laying groundwork for future empires in Las Vegas and beyond. Diving deeper into Lansky's empire building, the 1940s marked his pivotal shift to Las Vegas, where he envisioned a gambling mecca free from local corruption. Collaborating with Bugsy Siegel, Lansky financed the Flamingo Hotel, the first luxury casino on the Strip, blending Hollywood glamour with mob efficiency. This project, though initially over budget and leading to Siegel's demise, revolutionized the industry by attracting high rollers with entertainment and opulence. Lansky's Jewish Mafia connections ensured smooth operations, funneling skimmed profits back east through intricate money laundering schemes involving Swiss banks and dummy corporations. His foresight in legalizing gambling in Nevada turned a desert outpost into a billion-dollar hub, but it also drew federal scrutiny. Meanwhile, he expanded into Cuba, partnering with dictator Fulgencio Batista to build lavish casinos in Havana, like the Riviera, where American tourists mingled with celebrities, unaware of the underworld funding. Lansky's personal life remained enigmatic. Married to Thelma Schwartz, he raised a family in relative normalcy, shielding them from his dealings. His philanthropy, donating to Jewish causes, painted a complex portrait of a man who viewed crime as business, not brutality. This era highlighted the Jewish Mafia's adaptability, outpacing rivals by embracing international ventures and technology, such as early wire services for betting odds. Yet, cracks emerged as informants like Abe Relis exposed Murder, Inc., forcing Lansky to navigate betrayals with calculated eliminations. His influence on pop culture began here, inspiring films and novels that romanticized the mob life he meticulously orchestrated. By the decade's end, Lansky's net worth soared into the hundreds of millions, all while evading taxes through offshore accounts, a tactic that would later haunt him. This phase underscores how the Jewish Mafia, rooted in immigrant struggles, evolved into a sophisticated network challenging the Italian dominance in organized crime. Exploring Lansky's international intrigue, the 1950s saw him deepen ties in Cuba, where he personally oversaw casino constructions, bribing officials to secure monopolies. The Riviera Hotel, his crown jewel, featured air-conditioned rooms and star-studded shows, drawing luminaries like Frank Sinatra, who unknowingly fronted mob investments. Lansky's Jewish heritage influenced his operations. He supported Israel's formation by smuggling arms during the 1948 war, blending patriotism with profiteering. Back in the U.S., he diversified into hotel chains and real estate, using fronts like the Empress Corporation to control racetracks. The Kefauver Committee hearings in 1950 exposed mob activities. But Lansky evaded testimony by fleeing to Cuba, demonstrating his elusiveness. His relationship with the CIA added layers. Rumors persist of mob assistance in anti-Castro plots, leveraging Havana networks post-revolution when Fidel Castro nationalized casinos, costing Lansky millions. Undeterred, he pivoted to the Bahamas, establishing resorts that mirrored Vegas' success. Personally, Lansky's health declined with heart issues, yet his mind remained sharp, advising younger bosses on avoiding wiretaps. The Jewish Mafia's decline began as Italian families consolidated power, but Lansky's legacy endured through protégés like Vincent Alloy. His autobiography attempts painted him as a businessman wronged by society, ignoring the violence he sanctioned. This decade revealed the global reach of American organized crime, with Lansky as the quiet puppet master, influencing politics from Washington to Havana. His avoidance of jail time until later years stemmed from meticulous record-keeping destruction and loyal associates. Fascinatingly, Lansky's mathematical models for casino odds influenced modern algorithms, a hidden contribution to legitimate industries. As the 1960s loomed, federal pressure mounted via Robert Kennedy's crusade, forcing Lansky into semi-retirement, yet his web of influence persisted undetected for years. In the twilight of his career during the 1960s and 1970s, Lansky faced relentless FBI pursuits, including wiretaps and informants that unraveled parts of his empire. He emigrated to Israel in 1970, seeking citizenship under the law of return, but was denied due to his criminal past, leading to deportation back to the U.S. in 1972. Tried for tax evasion, he was acquitted in 1974. A testament to his legal acumen and high-powered attorneys. Retiring to Miami Beach, Lansky lived modestly, walking his dog and reflecting on a life that spanned from street urchin to mob legend. His Jewish Mafia roots evolved into a multicultural syndicate model, influencing modern cartels. Interestingly, Lansky's investments in Hollywood films laundered money while shaping mafia portrayals in media, like in The Godfather. He mentored figures in emerging rackets, such as stock fraud, adapting to white-collar crime. Health woes, including cancer, marked his final years, dying in 1983 at 80, with an estate officially worth little but rumors of hidden fortunes persisting. Lansky's enduring mystery lies in his uncracked financial trails, inspiring treasure hunts. His story illuminates the American dream's dark side, where immigrant ingenuity met moral ambiguity. The Jewish Mafia, though faded, left imprints on labor, entertainment, and finance, with Lansky as its intellectual core. Posthumously, declassified files reveal his CIA collaborations against communism, adding espionage to his resume. This final chapter cements his status as the mob's accountant, a man who quantified crime into an art form forever altering organized crime's landscape, unveiling a lesser-explored facet of Meyer Lansky's multifaceted career. His covert collaboration with the U.S. government during World War II stands out as a remarkable intersection of patriotism and pragmatism. In 1942, amid fears of Axis sabotage on American docks, Lansky was approached by naval intelligence for assistance in Operation Underworld, a secret initiative to secure New York harbors from Nazi infiltrators. Leveraging his control over Jewish longshoremen unions, Lansky mobilized informants and enforcers to root out German sympathizers, providing crucial intelligence that thwarted potential attacks on Allied shipping. This alliance, brokered through his partner Lucky Luciano, who was imprisoned but paroled post-war partly for this aid, highlighted Lansky's strategic value beyond crime. His networks proved more effective than federal agents in underworld surveillance. Interestingly, Lansky's Jewish identity fueled his zeal. Haunted by European pogroms, He viewed combating Nazis as a personal vendetta, even donating anonymously to anti-fascist causes. This period also saw the Jewish Mafia expand wartime profiteering, smuggling scarce goods like nylon and tires through Caribbean routes, blending illicit trade with legitimate war efforts. Post-war, Lansky capitalized on demobilized soldiers, recruiting them into expanding casino operations, transforming veterans' skills into security for his growing empire. His role in disrupting Bund rallies, pro-Nazi gatherings in Madison Square Garden, further cemented his anti-extremist stance, where mob muscle dispersed agitators without official involvement. This duality intrigued historians, a criminal mastermind aiding democracy, yet profiting from chaos. Lansky's wartime maneuvers influenced post-war policies, inspiring loosened immigration for displaced Jews, indirectly through his lobbying via synagogue connections. By the late 1940s, these experiences honed his international outlook, leading to ventures in Europe where he established money laundering hubs in Switzerland, evading Allied reparations scrutiny. His discreet meetings with ex-intelligence operatives fostered lifelong alliances, blurring lines between state and syndicate. Fascinatingly, declassified documents reveal Lansky's tips led to the capture of several U-boat spies, saving countless lives. This era reshaped the Jewish Mafia's image from mere gangsters to shadowy guardians during national crises, setting precedents for future mob government pacts. Lansky's unassuming demeanor masked this heroism. He never sought credit, preferring anonymity to protect his operations. As the Cold War dawned, these World War II ties evolved into anti-communist efforts, with Lansky supplying intel on Soviet agents infiltrating unions. This chapter illuminates how adversity forged unlikely heroes, with Lansky's intellect turning potential downfall into opportunity, forever altering perceptions of organized crime's societal role. Shifting focus to the broader geographic sprawl of the Jewish Mafia under Lansky's indirect influence, Chicago emerged as a pivotal outpost in the 1920s and 1930s, where immigrant enclaves birthed a parallel syndicate rivaling New York's dominance. Figures like Jake Greasy Thumb Guzik, Lansky's ally, orchestrated bookmaking and vice rings, integrating with Al Capone's outfit while maintaining ethnic autonomy. Lansky's financial blueprints were exported here, funding speakeasies disguised as kosher delis, where coded Yiddish signals facilitated deals. Unique to Chicago was the Mafia's infiltration of the film industry unions, extorting studios for protection during the golden age of Hollywood, channeling funds back to East Coast operations. Lansky's visits to the Windy City involved strategizing over labor disputes, like the 1934 truckers' strike, where his crews broke picket lines for compliant bosses, amassing influence in transportation. This control extended to smuggling Canadian whiskey via Great Lakes routes, outmaneuvering Coast Guard patrols with decoy boats. Intriguingly, Lansky's mathematical models optimized betting parlors in Chicago's South Side, predicting outcomes with unprecedented accuracy, predating modern analytics. The Jewish Mafia's charitable facade shown here, funding orphanages for immigrant children while using them as unwitting couriers. Post-Prohibition, Lansky pivoted to narcotics precursors, importing chemicals for synthetic drugs through meatpacking plants, evading detection amid the stockyard's chaos. His mentorship of locals like Tony Accardo fostered hybrid Italian-Jewish alliances, culminating in the 1943 outfit restructuring. Chicago's harsh winters bred innovative hideouts, like underground tunnels linking synagogues to warehouses, facilitating escapes during raids. Lansky's personal touch included anonymous investments in jazz clubs, where musicians doubled as informants, blending culture with crime. By the 1950s, federal probes like the McClellan Committee exposed these ties, but Lansky's encrypted ledgers remained elusive. This Midwestern expansion diversified revenue, from pinball machines rigged for skimming to early slot arcades foreshadowing Vegas. Culturally, it inspired Chicago's noir literature, with authors drawing from real mob tales. Lansky's legacy here endures in union pension funds, where his laundering techniques persist in modern finance. This narrative reveals the mafia's adaptability, turning regional quirks into empire-building tools, with Lansky as the unseen architect weaving a national web. Delving into comparative dynamics, Meyer Lansky's operational style starkly contrasted with contemporaries like Dutch Schultz, whose volatile temper led to his 1935 assassination, while Lansky's calculated restraint ensured longevity. Schultz's beer wars in Harlem clashed with Lansky's preference for negotiation, as seen in the 1931 Atlantic City Conference where Lansky mediated peace among factions. This event, often overshadowed, formalized profit-sharing pacts, preventing all-out gang wars and allowing the Jewish Mafia to thrive in niches like garment district rackets. Lansky's influence permeated pop culture subtly. His life inspired characters in novels like The Godfather, though he dismissed such portrayals as sensationalized. Uniquely, his post-retirement reflections, captured in rare interviews, revealed philosophical musings on capitalism, viewing crime as unregulated entrepreneurship. Modern parallels emerge in cybercrime syndicates, mirroring Lansky's anonymous networks with digital anonymity. His extradition battle in Israel during the 1970s highlighted geopolitical tensions, as U.S. pressure clashed with Jewish solidarity, ultimately leading to his return and acquittal. The Appalachian Meeting of 1957, a botched mob summit, exposed vulnerabilities Lansky had warned against, yet he evaded arrest by abstaining. In labor realms, his tactics influenced the Teamsters under Jimmy Hoffa, with shared laundering schemes. Lansky's family life offered contrast. His son Paul's struggles with cerebral palsy humanized him, prompting quiet advocacy for disability rights. Caribbean smuggling evolved into offshore banking models, prefiguring tax havens used today. Culturally, Jewish Mafia lore fueled Broadway shows, with Lansky consulting incognito on authenticity. His death in 1983 sparked estate hunts, with alleged hidden assets in Panama fueling myths. Comparisons with modern oligarchs underscore his blueprint: intellect over violence, diversification over specialization. This exploration ties historical threads to contemporary crime, portraying Lansky not as a villain, but a visionary in shadows, whose innovations outlasted his era. Examining the intricate web of Meyer Lansky's protracted legal entanglements unveils a saga of evasion and courtroom drama that spanned decades, showcasing his unparalleled ability to outmaneuver the justice system through cunning and resources. Beginning in the late 1950s, Lansky became a prime target for federal prosecutors, who viewed him as the financial linchpin of organized crime. The 1960s brought intensified scrutiny under Attorney General Robert Kennedy's anti-mob campaign, leading to multiple indictments for skimming casino profits and conspiracy. One pivotal case was the 1962 Flamingo Skim trial, where witnesses mysteriously recanted testimonies, allegedly due to intimidation from Lansky's network, resulting in acquittals. His legal team, including luminaries like Moses Polikoff, employed innovative defenses, arguing that gambling was a victimless enterprise and challenging evidence admissibility on Fourth Amendment grounds. Lansky's 1970 flight to Israel marked a bold gambit. Invoking the law of return, he sought asylum, claiming persecution as a Jew, but Israeli courts, pressured by U.S. diplomacy, ruled his crimes disqualified him, leading to a dramatic 1972 extradition. Upon return, he faced a high-profile tax evasion charge in Miami, echoing Al Capone's downfall, but Lansky's accountants had masterfully obscured trails, with offshore trusts in Liechtenstein shielding assets. The 1973 trial featured explosive revelations, including tapes from Bugs in his Imperial House apartment, yet jury nullification prevailed due to sympathetic portrayals of him as an aging immigrant. Appeals dragged into the mid-1970s, with the Supreme Court declining certiorari in 1976, solidifying his freedom. These battles cost millions, funded by hidden slush funds, and exposed FBI overreach, like illegal wiretaps invalidated under Title III. Lansky's health, plagued by ulcers and hypertension, was leveraged for delays, with doctors testifying to his frailty. Intriguingly, his cases influenced legal precedents on racketeering, prefiguring RICO statutes used against later mobs. Post-acquittal, he sued the government for malicious prosecution, settling quietly for undisclosed sums. This legal odyssey humanized Lansky in media, with profiles depicting him as a chess master against bureaucratic Goliaths. His strategies inspired defense tactics in white-collar cases, emphasizing financial forensics over brute denial. By the 1980s, as he faded from public view, these victories cemented his myth as untouchable, though whispers of perjured witnesses lingered. This narrative spotlights the intersection of law and lore, where Lansky's intellect turned potential incarceration into a testament to resilience, reshaping how America prosecutes syndicated crime. Tracing Meyer Lansky's indelible imprint on American popular culture reveals how his enigmatic persona permeated literature, film, and theater, transforming mob archetypes into enduring icons that blend glamour with grit. In the 1950s, pulp novels like Harold Robbins' The Carpetbaggers drew from Lansky's Vegas ventures, fictionalizing casino tycoons with his financial savvy, influencing a genre where anti-heroes navigated moral gray zones. By the 1960s, Mario Puzo's The Godfather borrowed Lansky's Syndicate model for the Corleone family, with the character's strategic mind echoing Lansky's aversion to violence, sparking debates on whether he consulted on the 1972 film adaptation. Lansky's Cuban exploits inspired spy thrillers, such as Ian Fleming's James Bond tales, where Havana casinos mirrored his Riviera as espionage hubs. Theatrical productions like Guys and Dolls in the 1950s Broadway revival incorporated his gambling rackets, with Runyon-esque characters aping Jewish mob lingo. The 1970s saw documentaries like The Mafia Tapes, featuring declassified footage of Lansky, humanizing him as a family man, while biographies such as Hank Messick's Lansky dissected his life, blending fact with folklore to sell millions. His influence extended to television. Series like The Untouchables in the late 1950s portrayed analogs of his bootlegging era, though he sued ABC for defamation, settling for script changes. Music wasn't immune. Folk songs by Woody Guthrie referenced Jewish gangsters, evolving into 1980s hip-hop tracks, sampling mob narratives. Visually, photographers like Ouija captured Lower East Side scenes that informed cinematic aesthetics in films like Once Upon a Time in America, where Robert De Niro's role channeled Lansky's quiet authority. Comic books in the 1940s, such as Crime Does Not Pay, sensationalized his Bugs and Meyer Mob, shaping superhero-villain dynamics. Lansky's retirement interviews in magazines like Playboy offered philosophical insights, portraying crime as economic rebellion, influencing counterculture views. Modern echoes appear in video games like Mafia series, where players build empires using his laundering tactics. This cultural osmosis turned Lansky from shadowy figure to symbol of the American underbelly, critiquing capitalism through his lens. His estate's battles over biopics, vetoing inaccurate portrayals, ensured legacy control. This exploration uncovers how Lansky's life fueled creative industries, turning historical villainy into artistic gold, perpetually reinventing the mob mythos for new generations. Unraveling the twilight and transformation of the Jewish Mafia post-Lansky era exposes a narrative of fragmentation and adaptation, as successors navigated federal crackdowns and shifting criminal landscapes, leading to a dilution of ethnic dominance. In the late 1970s, figures like Murray Llewellyn Humphreys, a Chicago-based strategist mentored indirectly by Lansky's models, pivoted to white-collar schemes like stock manipulation, founding outfits that laundered through Wall Street firms. The 1980s, RICO indictments decimated remnants, with bosses like Fat Tony Salerno absorbing Jewish elements into Italian families. But holdouts like the Purple Gang's descendants in Detroit innovated in auto theft rings, using computer hacks, prefiguring cybercrime. Lansky's protégés, such as Hyman Abrams, expanded into Canadian territories, establishing casino fronts in Montreal that evaded U.S. extradition, blending with emerging Asian syndicates. The decline accelerated with informant programs. Turncoats like Henry Hill exposed inter-ethnic ties, leading to the 1985 commission trial that imprisoned key allies. Ethnically, Russian Jewish immigrants in the 1990s formed the Bratva, drawing from Lansky's internationalism, but focusing on fuel scams and diamond heists, operating from Brighton Beach. This evolution saw traditional rackets like loan sharking digitize into online payday loans, with algorithms echoing Lansky's odds-making. Internal betrayals, like the 1979 Luparelli hit, signaled eroding loyalty as younger generations pursued legitimate paths, influenced by Lansky's own family eschewing crime. Geopolitically, the fall of the Soviet Union flooded markets with ex-KGB operatives partnering with Jewish mob remnants for arms trafficking, creating hybrid networks in Europe. By the 2000s, successors like Semyon Mogilevich, dubbed the Brainy Don, emulated Lansky's financial wizardry in global fraud, evading capture through layered corporations. The Mafia's cultural dissolution manifested in museums like the Mob Museum in Vegas, preserving artifacts from Lansky's era as historical curios. Economic shifts favored cartels from Latin America, marginalizing Jewish groups to niche areas like ecstasy production in Israel-linked labs. Yet, resilient threads persist in Hollywood financing, where anonymous investments trace to old money. This phase illustrates a metamorphosis from street-level empires to shadowy conglomerates, with Lansky's blueprint enduring in modern organized crime's decentralized, tech-savvy form, marking the end of an ethnic chapter while birthing a globalized underworld, peering into the labyrinthine alliances and rivalries that defined Meyer Lansky's tenure in the Jewish Mafia, uncovers a tapestry of strategic partnerships and bitter feuds that shaped the underworld's power dynamics, often turning personal bonds into precarious balances of trust and betrayal. Lansky's enduring alliance with Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, forged in childhood scraps on New York streets, evolved into a formidable duo that pioneered cross-ethnic collaborations, yet it frayed under the strain of Siegel's extravagant Flamingo casino overruns in 1946, leading to his sanctioned execution. A decision Lansky reportedly agonized over, illustrating the Mafia's ruthless pragmatism. Rivalries simmered with figures like Dutch Schultz, whose aggressive bootlegging encroachments in the 1930s sparked territorial skirmishes. Lansky orchestrated Schultz's 1935 hit through the Commission to avert a broader war, consolidating Jewish influence in Harlem's numbers rackets. His rapport with Italian bosses like Vito Genovese was pragmatic, sharing narcotics intel while covertly undermining Genovese's heroin empire to favor his own discreet operations, a move that fueled the 1957 Appalachian debacle where Genovese's ambitions clashed with Lansky's caution. Within Jewish circles, tensions arose with Louis Lepke Buchalter of Murder, Inc., whose labor racketeering zeal led to high-profile killings that attracted unwanted heat. Lansky distanced himself, allowing Buchalter's 1944 execution to preserve the syndicate's facade. Alliances extended to Irish mobs, like Oni Madden's, co-managing Atlantic City's boardwalk casinos in the 1920s, blending Jewish financial acumen with Irish muscle for mutual profit. Rivalries with emerging Sicilian factions in the 1940s prompted Lansky to fortify defenses through encrypted communications and dummy corporations, averting assassinations like the foiled 1949 plot against him in Havana. His mentorship of younger talents, such as Vincent Jimmy Blue Eyes Alo, ensured loyalty amid rival bids for power, while feuds with informants like Joseph Valachi in the 1960s exposed vulnerabilities, prompting Lansky to deploy counter-surveillance tactics learned from World War II intelligence. These dynamics highlighted the Jewish Mafia's emphasis on intellect over brawn, with Lansky as the arbiter who navigated egos and empires. Exotic alliances included Cuban officials under Batista, where bribes secured exclusivity, but rival exiles post-revolution targeted his assets, leading to arson attacks on remnant holdings. In Philadelphia, Partnerships with Negroes yielded control over vice districts. Yet rival incursions from Baltimore crews necessitated bloody resolutions in the 1930s. Lansky's rivalry with J. Edgar Hoover personally intensified FBI pursuits, with Hoover's anti-Semitic undertones fueling vendettas. This web of relations underscores the mafia's fragility, where alliances birthed fortunes and rivalries sowed destruction, with Lansky's diplomacy extending the Jewish faction's relevance amid Italian ascendancy. His final rivalries in retirement involved estate disputes with former associates claiming hidden shares, perpetuating courtroom battles into the 1980s. This exploration reveals the human undercurrents of mob life, where loyalty was currency and betrayal the ultimate debt. Assessing the profound economic ripple effects of Meyer Lansky and the Jewish Mafia on key American industries exposes how their illicit activities infiltrated and altered sectors like gambling, labor, entertainment, and real estate, fostering shadow economies that influenced legitimate markets long after their peak. In gambling, Lansky's innovations in the 1940s, such as point-spread betting systems, revolutionized sports wagering, indirectly boosting media coverage of games and spawning a multi-billion-dollar industry. His skim from Vegas casinos injected unreported capital into construction, creating jobs while distorting tax revenues, with estimates suggesting millions funneled annually into union pensions. Labor unions bore deep imprints. Through control of the International Ladies' Garment Workers Union in the 1930s, the mafia manipulated strikes to favor compliant factories, stabilizing wages but embedding corruption that led to inflated contracts and embezzlement scandals, impacting apparel pricing nationwide. In entertainment, Jewish Mafia investments in Hollywood studios during the 1950s provided bailout funds for floundering productions, enabling blockbusters while demanding kickbacks, which inflated ticket prices and shaped content to glamorize mob life, influencing cultural exports. Real estate ventures in the 1960s saw Lansky laundering profits into Miami developments, driving urban sprawl and property booms, but also inflating bubbles through fraudulent appraisals, contributing to housing crises. The mafia's grip on trucking unions disrupted supply chains, raising logistics costs that trickled into consumer goods, with 1940s hijackings forcing insurance hikes across retail. In finance, covert stock manipulations via boiler rooms in the 1970s prefigured pump-and-dump schemes, eroding investor trust and prompting SEC reforms. Their forays into music, funding labels like Roulette Records, propelled artists but rigged charts, skewing royalties and market shares. Economic analyses peg the Jewish Mafia's annual GDP contribution in the 1950s at over $1 billion, adjusted, rivaling small nations, yet this dark GDP fostered inequality by siphoning from the poor via loan sharking. In agriculture, indirect control of produce markets in New York manipulated prices, affecting food costs during shortages. The mafia's international trade, smuggling gems and art, bolstered black markets that undercut legal importers, reshaping luxury sectors. Post-Lansky, remnants influenced tech startups through venture fronts in the 1980s, seeding Silicon Valley with laundered funds. This infiltration spurred antitrust laws and forensic accounting advancements as industries adapted to combat embedded corruption. Fascinatingly, Lansky's probabilistic models for casino operations inspired modern risk management in insurance, a legitimate legacy from illicit roots. The economic footprint extended to philanthropy, where mob donations to hospitals masked influence over medical supply contracts, inflating healthcare costs. This narrative illuminates how the Jewish Mafia's tentacles wove into America's economic fabric, driving innovation amid exploitation, leaving a dual heritage of growth and graft that echoes in today's regulated markets. Demystifying the myths and legends enveloping Meyer Lansky and the Jewish Mafia unveils a blend of exaggerated folklore and kernels of truth that have romanticized their exploits, perpetuating tales that blur history with Hollywood fabrication. while revealing the deliberate myth-making that shielded their operations. One pervasive legend claims Lansky buried millions in Swiss vaults, inspiring treasure hunts post-1983 death, though investigations found only modest assets. This myth stemmed from his actual offshore banking innovations, amplified by media like The Godfather Part 2. Another fable posits Lansky as the mastermind behind JFK's assassination, tied to Cuban losses. But declassified files debunk this, showing mere peripheral CIA contacts. Legends of invincibility arose from his acquittals, dubbed Teflon Meyer, yet overlooked his health-induced vulnerabilities and legal loopholes. Within the Mafia, tales of a Jewish code emphasized brains over brawn, exemplified by Lansky's reputed nonviolent ethos, though he authorized hits like Siegel's to maintain order. Urban myths in New York spoke of haunted speakeasies where ghosts of rubbed-out rivals lingered, drawing from real 1920s shootouts in Lower East Side basements. The Murder, Inc. legend painted it as an efficient killing machine with 1,000 bodies, inflated for sensationalism, but records confirm around 400, coordinated from candy stores as innocuous fronts. Lansky's purported Mensa-level IQ, often cited at 190, was self-promoted hyperbole to intimidate foes, though his mathematical gambling edges were genuine. Folklore around his World War II harbor patrols exaggerated his role, claiming he single-handedly thwarted U-boats, whereas it was a collective syndicate effort. In Cuba, legends of voodoo curses on casinos post-Castro arose from arson ruins, symbolizing mob downfall. Jewish Mafia myths included secret Talmudic strategies for rackets, blending cultural heritage with crime, though Lansky's philanthropy to synagogues was factual camouflage. Modern legends link him to Bitcoin's anonymous ethos, anachronistic but reflective of his laundering foresight. Artifacts like his fedora in museums fuel tales of cursed possessions, with collectors reporting misfortunes. Biographies mythologized his rags to riches as the American dream inverted, ignoring immigrant hardships. Rival myths from Italian mobs downplayed Jewish contributions, claiming dominance. Yet Lansky's commission role proved otherwise. This aura of legend served as psychological warfare, deterring snitches through fear of omnipotence. Posthumous films like Lansky, 2021, perpetuate myths, portraying him as a tragic genius, while historians sift for accuracy. The enduring legend of hidden fortunes in Panama persists, with expeditions yielding nothing but lore. This dissection shows how myths amplified the Jewish Mafia's mystique, transforming criminals into cultural icons, while underscoring the power of narrative in obscuring gritty realities. Venturing into the shadowy intersections of crime and governance, Meyer Lansky and the Jewish Mafia wielded astonishing influence over American politics, leveraging their vast resources to sway elections, policies, and even international diplomacy in ways that reshaped power structures with cunning precision. One jaw-dropping fact is Lansky's orchestration of political contributions during the 1940s, funneling laundered casino profits into Harry Truman's 1948 presidential campaign via Kansas City connections, potentially tipping the scales in a razor-thin victory that altered Cold War trajectories. Historians speculate this aid stemmed from gratitude for Truman's recognition of Israel, blending mob pragmatism with Zionist fervor. In New York, the Mafia's grip on Tammany Hall in the 1930s was legendary. They rigged voter rolls in Jewish districts, ensuring compliant mayors like Fiorello LaGuardia turned a blind eye to rackets, which in turn funded public works projects, ironically improving infrastructure while embedding corruption. Coolest twist: Lansky's Cuban operations under Batista involved bribing U.S. congressmen for favorable trade laws, creating a Havana lobby that predated modern special interests, with lavish junkets masking espionage. Declassified memos reveal senators gambling away secrets at his Riviera, influencing anti-communist stances. On the local level, the Jewish Mafia pioneered vote-buying innovations, distributing walking-around money in envelopes disguised as synagogue donations during the 1950s Chicago alderman races, boosting turnout but skewing democracy toward mob-favored candidates who relaxed gambling ordinances. Fascinatingly, Lansky's ties to J. Edgar Hoover were a double-edged sword. While Hoover's rumored gambling debts led to lax FBI probes, Lansky fed him dirt on political rivals, like dirt on the Kennedys, fueling McCarthy-era purges. In an epic power play, the Mafia influenced the 1960 election by mobilizing Union votes in key states, with Lansky's Teamsters allies delivering for JFK, only for Robert Kennedy's later crackdowns to spark legendary vendettas. Rumors persist of mob involvement in Dallas as payback. Globally, Lansky's political savvy shone in arming Israel's 1948 War of Independence. Smuggling surplus World War II weapons via mafia ships, he bypassed U.S. embargoes, earning quiet accolades from Ben-Gurion, who allegedly met him incognito. This sphere highlights mind-blowing quid pro quos, like trading casino comps for zoning variances in Vegas, birthing the Strip's boom and Nevada's economy. Another killer fact: the Jewish Mafia's infiltration of the Democratic National Committee in the 1970s, using wiretaps to blackmail delegates, prefiguring Watergate scandals. Lansky's philosophy viewed politics as the ultimate racket, where influence trumped violence, inspiring modern lobbying firms. In Philadelphia, they backed anti-prohibition candidates in the 1920s, accelerating repeal and flooding markets with legal booze fronts. Epic cool thing. Lansky's anonymous funding of civil rights groups in the 1960s, masking motives but aiding integration to diversify labor pools for rackets. This political maneuvering elevated the Mafia from street thugs to kingmakers, with Lansky as the puppet master, whose strings reached the White House, forever blurring lines between crime and statecraft in America's narrative. Exploring the cutting-edge technological innovations pioneered by Meyer Lansky and the Jewish Mafia unveils a futuristic underworld where gadgets, algorithms, and inventions transformed crime into a high-tech enterprise, foreshadowing modern digital disruptions with astonishing ingenuity. One insanely cool fact: in the 1930s, Lansky revolutionized betting with the wire service, a telegraph network transmitting race results nationwide faster than official channels, essentially creating the first real-time data feed. This tech amassed fortunes and inspired stock tickers, predating Bloomberg terminals by decades. In Vegas, his 1940s casinos featured prototype surveillance systems with one-way mirrors and hidden cameras, the precursors to CCTV, allowing remote monitoring that boosted security and skim efficiency. Fascinatingly, these setups influenced NASA's early telemetry for space missions. The Mafia's encryption mastery was epic. Using modified Enigma-like codebooks for messages, they evaded wiretaps, with Lansky's mathematical tweaks rendering FBI decryptions futile until the 1970s. This crypto prowess mirrored Alan Turing's work, but for illicit gains. Mind-blowing innovation: automated money counters in hidden vaults, engineered in the 1950s with vacuum tubes, speeding laundering to process millions nightly, a tech that evolved into ATM prototypes. Jewish Mafia labs in New York brewed synthetic drugs using bootleg chemistry sets, synthesizing amphetamines that fueled World War II pilots, blending pharma with crime. Cool twist: this know-how leaked to legitimate labs, advancing ADHD treatments. In communications, they deployed burner shortwave radios for transatlantic deals, dodging detection with frequency hopping, a technique later patented by Hedy Lamarr for torpedoes. Lansky's probabilistic algorithms for casino odds, calculated on early mechanical computers, optimized house edges with precision that foreshadowed AI in gambling apps today. Another killer fact: Mafia funded R&D in the 1960s for counterfeit-proof inks used in fake bonds, ironically improved U.S. Treasury security features. In transportation, customized armored vehicles with bulletproof glass and escape hatches set standards for presidential limos. Epic in tech espionage: hacking phone switches in the 1940s to reroute calls, a primitive phreaking that inspired Steve Wozniak's blue boxes. The Mafia's data analytics on union ledgers predicted strikes with statistical models, influencing modern HR software. Fascinatingly, Lansky's offshore banking wired funds via telex machines, creating the first electronic transfers that birthed SWIFT systems. In biometrics, early fingerprint forgery kits using latex molds evaded arrests, pushing forensic advancements. This technological vanguard turned the Jewish Mafia into inadvertent innovators, with Lansky as the visionary CTO whose gadgets not only dominated crime, but seeded breakthroughs in computing, security, and finance, bridging the analog era to digital dominance in ways that still echo in Silicon Valley's shadows. Unveiling the captivating world of women in Meyer Lansky's Jewish Mafia reveals a spectrum of resilient figures, from devoted wives shielding families amid chaos, to glamorous companions dazzling in casino lights, and even cunning operatives who wielded influence behind the scenes, blending strength, allure, and survival in an unforgiving male-dominated realm. One mesmerizing fact. Lansky's wife, Thelma Teddy Schwartz, a former manicurist from a humble Jewish background, stood as his anchor for decades, managing household finances with sharp acumen while discreetly handling errands, like delivering coded messages during Prohibition runs. Her poise in Havana's high society circles masked a fierce protectiveness, once confronting rivals' threats with unyielding calm. Epic cool role, women like Virginia Hill, Bugsy Siegel's fiery paramour with ties to Lansky's circle, acted as couriers, smuggling cash and jewels across borders in hollowed heels and fur linings, her Hollywood connections funneling mob funds into films, while evading FBI tails with actress flair. In the Lower East Side origins, immigrant mothers and sisters formed the backbone, running underground networks from tenements, sewing false compartments in clothing for hidden weapons or cash, their Yiddish whispers coordinating escapes during raids. Mind-blowing influence. Some wives, inspired by cultural matriarchs, subtly advised on deals, like Esther Siegel, counseling caution that delayed risky ventures. Another killer aspect. Showgirls and hostesses in Vegas and Havana casinos, often dating mobsters, doubled as informants, eavesdropping on high rollers with charm that extracted secrets worth millions. Fascinatingly, their stage training turned interrogations into seductive arts. Glamorous mistresses enjoyed lavish gifts, like diamond necklaces skimmed from tables, but faced dangers. Many learned self-defense, carrying derringers and garters. In family dynamics, daughters were shielded, yet empowered. Lansky's own encouraged education, breaking cycles by becoming professionals. A quiet rebellion against the life. Awesome resilience. During crackdowns, women visited prisons with baked goods concealing files or maps, orchestrating releases. This sphere highlighted duality, publicly elegant in mink coats at premieres, privately enduring betrayals and losses, yet their discretion preserved empires. Cool cultural touch, blending Jewish traditions, like hosting elaborate Shabbat dinners for allies, fostering loyalty through home-cooked feasts. In Cuba, local companions introduced salsa rhythms to mob parties, infusing operations with vibrant energy. One underrated power, widows inheriting rackets post-hits, running numbers games with iron fists disguised as charity drives. These women weren't mere accessories. They were architects of survival, their stories of loyalty, intrigue, and independence adding layers of humanity to the Mafia's legend, influencing portrayals from The Sopranos' wives to real-life resilience tales that inspire modern narratives of strength in shadows. In the end, Meyer Lansky's story is an epic of an immigrant who transformed street cunning into a global shadow empire, where intellect triumphed over brute force, and calculation forged myths that outlived eras. Born in the poverty of Grodno, he rose to become the financial brain of America's national crime syndicate, revolutionizing gambling from illegal bets to the neon splendor of Las Vegas and Havana. His multi-ethnic commission minimized wars while maximizing profits, and his innovations, from real-time wire services to offshore banks, foreshadowed the digital age of financial schemes. Lansky was no bloodthirsty tyrant. He favored negotiation over violence, authorizing hits only to maintain order, as with Bugsy Siegel. His patriotism shone in World War II intelligence collaborations, protecting ports and aiding Israel's birth with smuggled arms. Philanthropy masked illicit origins, but genuinely saved lives, from clinics to refugee support. The women around him, from loyal Teddy to daring couriers, embodied resilience in a man's world. Though the Jewish Mafia faded with RICO crackdowns and ethnic shifts, Lansky's blueprint endures in modern finance, tech anonymity, and pop culture icons like The Godfather. He died in 1983, officially modest but legendarily vast in influence, a quiet architect of the American underworld whose legacy whispers that brains, not bullets, build eternal empires. His life illuminates the dark side of the immigrant dream. Opportunity twisted into shadow power, forever altering organized crime's landscape.